What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for stopping by. This is my YouTube channel. Don't know how you found your way here, but I'm glad you did. So on today's video, I'm joined with a very special guest. Welcome back, Ian Elliott-Carter.
Hey man, glad to be here. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with one of the best on YouTube. I said it, Jeremy Branch is one of the best on YouTube.
Thank you. In between last weekend and this week, something interesting came up on Facebook, and it was a video that I had posted, I don't know, several weeks ago, the difference of the minds of liberals and conservatives. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Very divisive conversation. I love it.
It got heated in the comment section, and then it went away, and I forgot about it. And then somebody fucking decided to go and comment on it again, and it bumped it back up on the feed. And
I saw that.
Yeah, it's like you can't get away from this conversation, this toxic shit. And what's so funny is, like, I mean, 175 comments in, and Ian pops in and he says, I love I love seeing white people argue about what's racist. It's cute. So I like, the irony is not lost on me now in retrospect. It's like, who knows about racism better than a bunch of white dudes?
I know, that's what had me laughing, man, because I already kind of knew your perspective on the conversation, and you were humoring these people from what I got out of it. But like, these other guys, they were pretty serious about what they were saying. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna let them finish. I didn't really want to get in the conversation, honestly, but I thought it was pretty funny, just like, no, this is racist, and that's racist, and these guys are racist, and not one Negro in sight to confirm any of this or just give their point of view of that.
Well, you know, that dude, I don't even want to say his name on here, but there's a guy who is like super active in these kind of conversations. He really has it in his mind that everybody is racist. Do you think that there's any like validity to that?
See, okay, so I saw what you actually said. When I think you gave someone gave the example that everybody is biased. Was that something you said?
Yes.
Right? Everybody has certain biases. So I think you also tried to give the point that everybody is a little racist. I agree and disagree with what you said right there, and I'll explain. I think everybody has prejudice. And with that being said, if a black person walks down the street with a hood and, you know, has that certain persona to him, even me as a black person might, you know, just go the other way. And I think there's not a lot of people that disagree with that. I also have that prejudice with white people that wear hoods and have glasses on. I think they might bomb the building, you know?
Sure.
And, you know, it's just everybody has certain prejudice. And I don't want to say every time it has something to do with race. It might, you know, it might not be the race. It might just be the persona. Like I just said, like, this is two examples of wearing the same thing. Both of them with hoods would freak me out. It might not have to do with their race. It's just their persona. But I do think we all have prejudice. Every person on here. And when someone says there's not a prejudice bone in their body, I'm like, shut the fuck up. You just want to sound cool. I think we all have that little bit of, there's something about somebody, regardless of who they are, it might trigger something in fear in you. And it's just how we are. It might be human nature. It might be Fox or CNN putting it in our heads, but I think we all have some type of prejudice.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I would like to think of myself as being evolved to the point that I'm not racist, but then it's like we have to define what racism is. You know, there's the difference between, like, I see another group and I have preconceived ideas about them. Maybe that's racist, but it's not the same kind of racist as going out and acting on these impulses or feeling superior, right? But then I started thinking about it, like, I don't want to be totally dismissive to this idea that maybe genetically, maybe evolution has built in this thing that we have an inherent, deep-rooted, subconscious wariness. I don't want to say fear of the other, but there's some genetic coding within our deepest recesses of our fucking lizard brain to where, like, we see outsiders as a potential threat or a competition when it comes to food sources, mates, all of these kind of things that are, like, very animalistic. So, I mean, backing up a little bit, like, I started doing a little bit of research on it, and there's something called the implicit bias. This is from BBC Magazine. magazine, and it's basically positing the question, is everyone racist? Few people openly admit to holding racist beliefs, but many psychologists claim most of us are nonetheless unintentionally racist.
And it's a debated topic, especially in the Black community. It's very divisive within Black people. And some things that, American racism, systemic, that conversation. But one of my first videos I did whenever I started my podcast, I had this Black guy on that his point of view was Black people can't be racist. And it was one of the most divisive and liked and viewed videos I ever had. And it's a very interesting conversation. You would think it's just like, really, what the fuck is this? But some of them do have definitely a good point of view on that. Whether I disagree with that. I think anybody of any race can be racist, but they make good points when they say stuff like that.
Well, and that is a really good point. And actually, if you look up the definition of racism, there are two distinctive different kinds. One of them subscribes to this idea of institutionalized racism. If you haven't systematically or systemically been oppressed, then you haven't experienced racism. But if a Black person says, I fucking hate all white people, well, what else is that? If it's not racist, what?
Definition of racism.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a little silly, that notion. I feel like if you're the kind of person that goes out and says derogatory things, negative things, or you won't let your daughter date outside of this race, or any, like, if it's an act. But I don't fault people for having bias. I don't fault people for being ignorant. Like, for example, somebody that grows up in a really rural town that's never actually met a Black person before, how would they know anything other than what they've heard or what they've been told? So, like, I feel like integration is like once people all get to know each other and realize that we're all like dealing with some bullshit or another, then people will ultimately probably get along.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree.